Welcome, everyone, to our CX Live podcast series dedicated to today's briefing and customer engagement professionals. I'm Darby Mason Werner, your podcast host, and I'm excited to be interviewing thought leaders across our industry who can share their experiences and ideas to help all of us improve our programs. Today's discussion is focused on the resilience roadmap, driving the boat, not focusing on the river. As we ring in the new year, many of us will take a look at the path we're on, evaluate and likely reevaluate, then see where we want to make changes. On the other hand, life has a way of redirecting our path for us, often through unexpected events that affect us on a deeply emotional level. Perhaps that is an unexpected corporate reorganization. That means you now report to a new boss in a new group. Maybe it's a life-changing accident and you have no idea how life will ever be the same. The challenge is knowing how to navigate these situations. Let's examine the elements of the resilience roadmap and learn more about navigating by driving our boat while not focusing on the river. And today I'm so excited to be joined by Spencer Waldron, CEO of Synrox. As the founder of Synrox, Spencer helps people show up as the best version of themselves when it matters most. He's best known for his work in conversational presenting, helping leaders and teams move away from one side, one way slide decks and toward clearer, more engaging, audience-led conversations. Spencer's work isn't just based on theory or technique. In the past year, his perspective on communication and leadership has been shaped by navigating a serious family crisis, which led him to explore what resilience really looks like under pressure. Today, he brings those lessons into his work with organizations, combining clarity, presence, and human connection in high-stakes moments. Spencer is also a LinkedIn Learning instructor, a TEDx speaker, and a student of improv comedy. And I was honored to meet Spencer when he reached out to me recently about being involved in a podcast related to communication skills. Coincidentally, the next day, I happened to see his LinkedIn post about his son's accident nearly a year ago and how he developed 8 behaviors to help him and his family survive and move forward. And that led to some very deep conversations over the past couple of weeks and to our discussion being more centered on resiliency, both in our personal and professional lives. And with that, I'll say hi, Spencer, and thank you so much for reaching out to me and making time to do this today. And I just think this topic of resiliency, as we begin the new year, it's really the perfect segue also from my previous episode that we did about manifesting the life we want. It couldn't have lined up any better. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, like you said, it seemed there was a good connection between the topics. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very serendipitous, I like to say. So.
Yeah.
And from other podcasts, that I love asking everyone about their unique journey to the briefing world. And can you share yours?
Sure. I guess I first became aware of briefing programs and briefing centers when I was at Prezi. So obviously we
Mhm.
did a lot of supporting of presenters inside big companies. And yeah, obviously that's a well-known place where there's a lot of presentations happening. So this is when I first started to become aware of it. And when I left Prezi 3 years ago and founded Senrox, then I ended up crossing paths with Sid from Miro.
Ah,
And
yes. God, we love Sid.
exactly. Yeah, so we did some work together there, helping people look at conversational presenting and asking better questions, active listening, things like that. So yeah, that's really was when I first entered that world. And yeah, since then I haven't looked back.
Well, and I'm curious too, because oftentimes, folks will let us know, what did you go to college? Did you have a certain area of study in school? Where did you
Yeah, I so I was a 16 to 18-year-old that had no idea what he wanted to do. And
Okay.
I took the advice of my dad, and he said, go into business because you'll experience lots of different things and maybe you'll find something you like. And yeah, I did a business degree, and the only thing I loved was marketing. So I
Yes.
became Yeah.
Mhm.
I became a marketing person. So I've spent 30 years in marketing, really started out in ad agencies and then moved client
Ah,
side.
okay.
And it was a strange coincidence about 15 years ago that got me into the world of communication, presenting, things like that. When I was also back then a co-founder of a marketing agency.
Okay.
And we had one client that rang us one day and said, "Hey, we've got 21 presentations that look terrible. Can you help?" And that was the that was the first job that when I came out of the job, I was like, oh, I really love this space. And I saw that people needed help and there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of help out there. And yeah, it started literally from one client project. And the agency over time basically became like a presentation design company. And that's
Mhm.
how I got
Mhm.
into it, which then that eventually led to Prezi, as we've
Prezi, which
spoken.
is a natural progression. Yeah, that makes total
Yeah.
sense.
Well, they kind of found me and said, "You're this weird person that has marketing software and presentation, so come work for us." But
Oh, there you
yeah,
go.
so I
Yeah.
just had the right mix of background.
Oh, that's perfect. And you were you born and raised in Amsterdam? I know you're in Amsterdam now.
No, no, not at all. As you can hear from the accent, I'm originally from the UK.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
was born in a very small village called Market Deeping in the UK. And the normal route, school, college, uni, and then I'd always wanted to go traveling, to go backpacking.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it took me, I finished university and then worked for 2 or 3 years and had this moment where I knew that if I didn't do it soon,
Never
20
gonna
years,
happen.
and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I literally woke up the next day and went and bought a ticket, a 1 year around the world ticket. And yeah, then just stopped going out, took a second job, moved back in with mum and dad, saved as much as I could, and
Oh,
went traveling. And that, I didn't know it at the time, but that totally altered the course of my life
oh
because
yeah.
that's what led me to working and living in 4 different countries. And yeah,
Oh
so
my gosh.
small decision, big impact, that's for sure. But yeah, it really, yeah,
Isn't it interesting those choices that we make, at the time, not realizing what impact it will make? I completely relate on the backpack thing. I
yeah,
did a 9-week trip backpack, part of it with a friend, part of it by myself, when I wasn't quite done with college yet. So what
yeah,
summer, well, I won't date myself, but it was just a really um empowering kind of experience and meeting all of these people who were doing the same thing from all over the world, and some were doing what you were doing, like, I'm going to work here for a little while, I'm going to go off to Germany, and I'm going to be there for a month, and I'll figure it out. And
yeah,
it was just kind of this thing, but it really taught you how to really take care of yourself and figure things out and problem solve and uh,
yeah.
meet people and just be open to what's available. And I think my love for travel, and naturally after that, kind of led into finding the events world and then finding the briefing world.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. Well, that good for you. Oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was definitely yeah, an experience that like to your point, it just totally changes who you are.
Yeah.
And I think it, especially because I was 25 when I left, and I think it really calms you down as a person and
Hmm.
you find a lot of confidence and you find your center in a way. It's yeah, it was the best thing I could have done at that point in my life, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, me too. I'm amazed it was that long ago, because it feels like I can literally kind of walk in my head what each of those days of those 9 weeks were like. It was
Yeah.
just that impactful. So,
Yeah.
all
Nice.
right. Well, let's jump in. And, from your time working at Prezi, you had talked about how you became interested in neuroscience and emotions. I think that is really key. Can you share what you learned about that and how you see how that applies to briefing and customer engagement programs for folks listening?
Yeah, definitely. So it came from just this idea that when I as I said before, found this world through starting this agency that became like a presentation design company.
Hmm.
So I became very good at storytelling, structure, slide design, but I would always give the presentation to somebody else
Ah,
and they would present it. So when I joined Prezi, which was back in 2014, that was the mission that I gave myself, that I want to understand, how do I deliver a great presentation?
mhm.
And it started this 10-year journey of trying to understand that. And I guess like everybody, the first thing we have to deal with is how do we manage our nerves,
Yes.
because and our imposter syndrome, because we all get in imposter syndrome and we all have nerves. And that was the beginning part of how I went down the rabbit hole of understanding emotions, because I suddenly understood that it's actually biology. That's why we all have the same thing. And I was
Yeah.
trying to figure out, how do I understand fear? How do I understand what our nerves are? And that's when I came across the fact that like emotions and feelings are two different things. So if you think about it, like emotions, we only have eight of them and they're physical. So if it's a physical
Yeah.
thing that happens in our body. So if, for example, we look at fear, then what do I experience when I'm scared? Well, my heart beats faster and my palms get sweaty and I've got
Mhm.
adrenaline around the body. And my conscious brain, like my cerebral cortex, interprets what's happening in the body. Oh, I must be scared.
Right.
And I suddenly realized when I looked at these eight emotions, and we'll go into them a little bit in a minute, but what I suddenly understood is when you look at fear and excitement, it's the same thing that happens to the body. Because when you think about what happens when
Hmm.
I'm excited, it's the same thing, right? My heart's beating faster, sweaty palms, adrenaline. But yeah, now I'm on a roller coaster or I'm doing something
Yeah,
that's
you're happy about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. And this gave me like there's two main ways that somebody can manage their nerves. One is you just have to do lots and lots of presentations. Like any fear, the more we do the thing that scares us, the easier it becomes.
Hmm.
But the second thing that I understood is most people, when they're nervous before a presentation, they go inside themselves and they're like, oh, I'm nervous. Everybody looks very experienced. Who am I to do this?
Hmm.
And we have this like negative talk inside ourselves. I was exactly the same. And what I learned was, when I start to feel that, I need to go external to the audience and go, why am I excited to give this presentation?
Ah,
Maybe I get
yeah.
to help them do something different next week. Maybe I change their world for the better a little bit.
Oh.
And that's what and I always like to say that if you think about the word presentation, it has the word present, a gift in it. So I
Ah,
always think when you give a presentation, you're giving a gift to your audience. Whenever I work with people, I always say, like, why are you excited to give this talk? It could be that it's going to help raise your name in the organization. Maybe it's going to help you get a promotion. Maybe you are passionate about the change that's happening in the market, whatever it is. But if you write down, why am I excited to give this talk, that's really powerful to remind yourself in those moments, because it allows your brain to almost retranslate the message of what's happening physically in the body. So, no, I'm not scared, I'm excited.
right.
And
But I love
yeah,
that what you said, the presentation and the present part of that,
yeah,
being present is one, but also the idea of present, like you're giving a gift, like
yeah,
reframing the mindset of what is it that I'm doing and why am I doing it? I love
definitely.
that. It's so
Yeah.
spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a presentation, why are we given a presentation? It's to
Hmm.
make a change, either change how somebody thinks,
Hmm.
feels, or acts. So again, like, one of the things I kind of go through with people is always at the beginning, like, what's, just create a little simple box with, you know, um, how are people thinking about this topic before I talk?
Hmm.
How are they acting? What are they doing right now? And how do they feel about it? And I always use the feel column, because that's all about emotional connection, and the other two are all about rational argument.
Uh-huh.
But then what I do is I say, okay, but what do you want your audience to think, feel, and do after you've given the presentation?
Yeah.
And that's the change that you're trying to make. So I always think like it's that classic thing of, it's not about me, it's about them. How can I
Hmm.
help them be a rock star inside their company? How can I help them achieve something new or think something differently. But
Yeah.
so yeah, but the emotion. So going back to I discovered this thing or this link between fear and excitement, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. And I wanted to go more. And then I was really lucky during our time at Prezi, we got to work with a lady in the US. She's a neuroscientist, and
Uh-huh.
she's an expert in how people look, how people respond to content, especially during presentations.
Ah.
And yeah, she sent me down a rabbit hole of various books and learnings and things like that. And that's when I started to understand that these 8 emotions are it's almost like our operating system for everything. So yes, it applies to presentations.
Yes.
Yes, but it also applies to our personal lives and our relationships. And so it became like really fascinating to me.
Hmm.
And what I discovered was, so out of these 8, we have 5 that are negative. And I was like, okay,
Well, that's a
5
bummer.
negative
Yeah.
emotions. Why is that? But that's because it's our fight, flight, or freeze tendencies. So the
Hmm.
5 negative ones, which are like anger, fear, shame, disgust, that's what keeps us safe, if you like. But they're
Hmm.
negative. They're like they call them like their survival emotions.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 that are attachment emotions, which is they group some together. So love and trust, they put together, that's one,
Okay.
and joy and excitement. So that's where excitement
Aha.
fits in. So excitement is an attachment emotion, and fear is in the negative, also the survival emotions.
Hmm.
So that's 7. And then the most amazing discovery was the 8th emotion, which is the only emotion that can flip somebody's brain from a negative survival emotion to a positive attachment emotion, and that's surprise. So
Ah.
when you're surprised, our brain stops our normal way of thinking about something and again, this goes back to maybe I can learn something that's going to help me be safe in the future or more successful in the future. And what
Okay.
I suddenly started to look at was, which makes a lot of sense, is if you're a discussion leader going into a meeting and you've got somebody there who I can almost guarantee before you start your presentation, they'll be in a survival emotion because they're like, okay, who is this person? Are they going to give me any
Mm,
value? Are they
exactly.
just going to
Yeah.
try and pitch me? Like
Yeah.
the defenses are up. And I thought, yeah, actually, that's really not a good way for somebody to receive your message. So where I want them is I want them in the attachment emotion, because when they're in attachment emotions, they're curious,
Right.
they're asking questions because
Right.
they want to know, okay, so what can you help me with that's going to help me be more successful in the future? So what I always say to people is we want like a surprise really early on in the
Okay.
presentation
Yeah.
to flip them into that mode. And that can be something as simple as, I always say, the most valuable real estate we have in our presentations is the title slide, because
Okay.
that's the slide that's normally on the screen as everybody comes into the room, or you put it up on the
Yeah.
screen and people are talking. So it's there a long time. And most people will put the name of the meeting, the date, it's
Right. Boring
normally
stuff.
like a template.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing place to put your main message, to
Right.
your
Right.
what I call the North Star message. And it could and you can use that to create a curiosity gap in somebody's mind. So
Yeah.
you could say, I don't know, how to get 1 million extra revenue in 2026 as a silly example. But what
Yeah.
that does is make me think, okay, I want to know how they're going to do
Exactly.
that.
You're already starting to be attached, if you will, to that. Like, oh, and there starts the excitement, right? The
Exactly.
attachment
Yeah.
of it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I love that. See, I'm going to use that at the next GASP conference in the spring.
Yeah, and it just, that's what you're looking for. I can either, or I could put a surprising statistic up on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could totally change the format of the meeting and, you know, do something
Uh-huh.
very different to what they're used to. So you can use surprise in different ways, but you want it out at the front. But yeah, so like everywhere I looked at these emotions, I just suddenly figured that, yeah, actually, this is a bit like finding the cheat code in a computer game to really help. Like, how do I? communicate with people. And it also ties into, when you look at persuasion, and persuasion is really like emotion plus trust. So how can I make an
Oh, yeah.
emotion?
Yep.
How can I make and this goes, you know, it doesn't matter who's talking about communication, they all are really paraphrasing Aristotle from 2000 years ago with his ethos, pathos, and logos, which is pretty much I translated as credibility, emotional connection, and trust. And credibility, I tend to not do too much with because if you're ever in a room or you're giving a presentation at a conference, you've already been given the credibility. You don't need to prove.
Right.
That's why I
Yes.
always say to speakers that you don't need to say your bio. You don't need to you've been given the credibility by the fact that you're going to be now talking. But for me, that the most important thing is you have to start with emotional connection. And that could be the surprising statistic. And
Hmm.
normally it's about helping them paint a picture of the future they could get to and what's the story they can tell their boss and things like that. But then obviously because we are very rational human beings, then we need we need the proof, the evidence.
Yes.
Prove to me that you can do what you say that you can do, or prove that we can do this together. Show me the steps, show me the milestones, show me the data. And many people
Right.
jump straight to the rational argument and they miss out the emotional connection. But actually, that's the critical piece. That's what eventually what makes people want to do an action, to actually take action after you've presented.
Right. No,
But
it
yeah,
makes total sense, and being able to do it earlier on, obviously, so that you don't lose the audience from the first, time you open your mouth. You've already been able to have some kind of connection with them or created that sense of anticipation or excitement about something. And yeah, in a surprising way that hits them different. I,
yeah,
I I love how you just kind of narrated us through that whole piece about
yeah.
the emotions and things. It
And it can be something like really small. Like I always say that the first words out of your mouth are important. And
mm,
many times we will say, "Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Good to meet you." It's like a little bit of like small talk, and then you'll start with like But actually, if you just go quiet and then say something like, "Last year, we started an experiment, and the results were really surprising. And I think it's going to transform how you do things next year." So, like straight away, I'm
oh,
like, it's
wow.
kind of storytelling, and I want to know what what that experiment was, and I may be still a little bit suspicious, but if you
Right,
can back
right.
it up with what you're going to say,
But you've done the
then
warm up, they're
yeah,
already warming to you
you've done the
at that
change in
point.
their head because
Yes. Yeah.
eventually all you're trying to say to anybody when you communicate is, I have your best interest at heart. I want to
Yes.
help you do something new to be more successful, and I'm not going to talk too much about me and my stuff, and
That's what I was going to
it's
say.
about
Like
you. Like,
like you said, that the beginning is usually, thank you, we're excited to be here, blah blah, and without meaning to, it's just kind of a natural, common thing to do. It is kind of focused on you, and part of that is us just settling into our own bodies to be standing in front of that group, and then
yeah,
our own anticipation about what's this group going to be like, and is it going to be interactive, and can I remember everything I'm supposed to say, or blah blah, all the butterflies and stuff. I always say, if I don't have butterflies in my stomach when I'm going to present anywhere, mostly GSP conferences, something's wrong,
yeah,
right? Something's wrong.
yeah,
And so having that kind of and then trying to the SIPAB and having that kind of starting opening and having that okay, I know what I'm doing, and it's focused on them, but even this is like another layer on top of that to be an even earlier starting point of making that connection, which I think is so critical, and that in itself could really change how folks are in their briefing programs or
yeah,
in those rooms in that element, not even so I mean, it's true in conferences when we're talking to a whole group of people and everything. And I like what you said, by the way, about the fact that you're already there. You're already, leading a session. The credibility is built in because, we oftentimes we do these slides and we say, here's who we are and what we do and, give this background and everything. So it's like, yeah, we've been around. We know what we're talking about. But okay, so maybe that's, not as necessary, if you will. I hadn't really thought about it that way before.
Yeah, and I think like these days, everybody has so much information at their fingertips, and normally you do not end up in a room with somebody about to give a presentation without a considerable amount of conversation, research,
Yeah,
communication, whatever
yeah.
beforehand. And and it's like when I, not so much with briefing managers, but when I work with sales teams, and I say like, if you ever heard the sentence before, "I'll just email me the deck." And the
Uh,
sentence, "just email me the deck," is a signal that says they do not need your entire 20-minute presentation. They
ah,
have answers. They've got three questions maybe,
right.
and they need the answers to those. And I think that's where the one-way versus two-way element of a presentation becomes really powerful because, yeah,
Hmm.
like, oh, wow. Thank you for giving me 20 minutes of your time. How can we best spend this time together? Like,
Right.
what's important
Right.
for you to know? Like, I'm not going to waste my time telling you things that you already know or aren't going to be relevant. Like, I want to just get straight to
Get
where
to the
that
heart of the
person's
matter.
at.
Yeah. What do I
Yeah,
care about? Yeah.
yeah,
And being able to address what they care about. Yeah. Love it.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And no need for that, what do they call it? Show up and throw up thing, just be able to get to what they're doing. And we all talk about being customer focused, but really like understanding what is it that they are there for. And like you said, if you can hit on those top three things and you can do it, it's not even fast, but just, intentionally focusing on
Yeah.
those things and not trying to do your sales pitch and make sure you get, 10 different products mentioned in your, time that you have together, like get over yourself to be able to do that, you know. Um, I do want to kind of dig deeper into the emotion side of things. And I really, I was beyond moved by your post, your LinkedIn post, and you reflecting on what a very difficult year it's been for you and your family, and relating to your son's accident. And you shared that you had some realizations and that you had created these habits, these behaviors that really helped you to deal with such a traumatic event, and that led to, the building of the resiliency, if you will. And I just wonder if you could kind of delve into that for us and share that part with everybody.
Sure. Yeah. It's take a
Wow,
deep
I
breath.
just went
Uh,
from way high to like,
yeah.
okay. And
Yeah. So
not in any level of depth, but
yeah,
it's what you've
it's
done on the coming out of this. It is so amazing to me. So
yeah.
amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been, yeah, the hardest year of my life and our family's life for sure this year. And it started, like you said, a year ago. We went on holiday for the Christmas vacation and we did like a house swap. So they got our place here, we got their place there.
Hmm.
And I've got two sons who back then were nearly 17 and nearly 16. And yeah, they said, "Dad, we're going to take the bikes and go off and explore." And I didn't give it a second's thought. Like, we're surrounded by fields there. And these are two boys that have grown up in Amsterdam, that,
Yeah, on
bikes are
bikes.
second nature.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So, and yeah. And then, like an hour later, I get a call from my youngest son saying, "Come quickly, Liam's been electrocuted. It's
Yeah.
really serious."
Yeah.
And I didn't like, we didn't know what to think. Like, we literally just phoned an ambulance, jumped in the car, and luckily we had like, there's like a family app where we can all see where each other are.
Locator.
And,
Yeah. Hmm.
and we kind of, like I say, rang for an ambulance, went to try and find them. And all the time I remember thinking like, it must just be that they touched one of those electric fences that keep the animals in the fields or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And it was only when I kind of turned the last corner that we found them, and my heart sank because they had climbed what they thought was a half-built electricity pylon because it had no
Yeah.
like cables on it. And yeah, and they'd climbed it to see the view, and my eldest son was electrocuted. So, and it was 22,000 volts. And yeah,
Mm.
he kind of fell to the ground. So he broke two ribs, punctured his lung, damaged his spleen, cracked a bone in his back. But the worst injuries were from the electricity. So it was 60% third-degree burns all over his body. And it's just like a parent's worst nightmare. Like, you
Oh,
know, like
really?
we basically suddenly were found ourselves living in the hospital for the next 4 months.
Yeah.
And it really went from like he may not survive the next few days. And if he does, then it will be a 2 year like journey to get back.
Right.
And yeah, so and it's funny, like I remember thinking at the time, like as the doctor was talking, I was like, okay, I can do 2 years of hard work. I can do that. Like,
Yeah.
it's almost like so even though it's been a really hard year, like the fact that he survived and we're now 18 operations down the road.
Oh,
But yeah, it's you every time it gets tough, every time you have those days where you're like, "Oh, I'm done. Like you think, no, the alternative was that he didn't survive, so I can do this. Like
yes. Yes. Exactly.
so
Yes.
yeah, so like that's the backstory. And it was, I mean, I could talk about it all day, but the resilience part of it came from like after a while, people kept saying to us like, "How are you so resilient?" Like resilient was this word
Yeah.
that people kept using, and I kept thinking like, "I'm not resilient. Like I don't, I'm a mess. I'm crying a lot. Like and
Yeah.
and again, it's just something that sent me off on this journey a bit to understand A, why did people think that, and what does it mean? Like, what are the things that we did? And I guess because that's who I am, I just started writing stuff. And it actually started with like on about the second or third day, obviously, like many family and friends had started to hear what had happened.
Right.
And it was like a fire hose. Our phones were like everybody wanting to get in touch. Everybody, like, what's going on? What's going on?
Oh, of course.
And we were like, oh, we can't deal with this. And I set up like a WhatsApp group to just keep everybody at arm's length in a way. And
Yes.
I did it just
Yes.
as like
Create a
a one
barrier for
way,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and it was just one way that we could do updates. And so it started out of necessity, but then very quickly I understood, like, for the first few weeks, my son was like unconscious.
Hmm.
So it kind of became, actually, this is a record of what's happening to him, because he's going to have the
Right.
horrible situation where he's going to wake up, hopefully, in this hospital bed, and he's not going to even remember the accident. He's just going to, be in this bed in a terrible condition. So it
Right.
kind of became like a record of events. And then after that, I suddenly realized it was becoming a bit like therapy for me,
Yeah.
because
Oh,
I would
yeah.
write that update every day in his room in the evening. And it was almost a way for me to like process the day and hit send. And
Uh-huh.
then, okay, I'll move on from today and I start worrying about tomorrow. But
Exactly. Exactly.
and yeah, and that just continued into the resilience thing. And so yeah, like really this year I've just, as time's gone on, I just keep adding and adding to it. And I just saw the buckets of behaviors that really helped. But yeah, it's been a year, that's for sure.
Oh, I, you shared the story with me, last week, and uh, I can't imagine. I just can't
Yeah.
imagine. And hearing the ways that you did cope, are coping with, the good news being that he's good. Like
Yes.
it hasn't been 2 years. It's a year and he's back at school and he's made it through all of these many and painful surgeries and with the burn scars and the grafts and the everything else that he's had
Yeah.
to endure. And he's done this with what seems like a positive outlook,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
obviously having you all with him and around him and, handling all of it in the way that you did. you
Yeah,
know.
he definitely he's we're 1 year down the road, and yeah, it's really only about scar management now. Like he had almost like he was the best age he could have been for something like this, because the body at 16, 17 is like a
Mhm.
regeneration machine.
Ah,
So that
ah,
definitely helped him. But yeah, his attitude to all of this has always been, when you see him now, like nothing anything that's happening right now just doesn't phase him. He's just like, I've been through such a horrible, hard
yeah, exactly. I
place
can
that,
handle anything. Yeah, at this
yeah,
point.
and it's amazing. Like he doesn't care like what people think, how they look at him, if they see his scars. He just
Yeah.
doesn't care. Like it's like,
Oh, that's
you know,
amazing.
for him, it's like I've done the hardest thing ever. So everything else now is going to be easier.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and yeah, we've still got we still have laser treatments for the burns, and he still has to do on a daily basis quite a lot of stuff, but
Yeah.
and he still does a lot of physio and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really quite a remarkable difference where we are now to where we were this time last year. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And, so would you be able to share, some of those behaviors and ways that you
Yeah.
would love for folks to like, I want to grab onto and know like how in the world
Yeah.
you did make it through that. Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting, like, because that's what I was kind of trying to figure out. Like, okay, what were we doing? What was I doing? And I think like the first one that came to mind was, and it's interesting because this whole year it really made me connect a number of dots with my past.
Mhm.
And the first thing was like, there's so much emotion that hits you when you're in this type
Yeah.
of situation. There's so many things happening. There's like unbelievable decisions, and it's like, and it feels very overwhelming. And like the first thing I just kept saying to myself were, and this comes back from, we spoke earlier about the fact that I went backpacking all those years ago,
Yeah.
and there was a book that I read during that time. I don't even remember the title of it, but it was like a book that was, I think it was something to do with like living a life with heart, I think was the title,
Oh,
something like that.
okay.
But it was, but there was an analogy or a story or a parable in it about the river and the boat.
Yeah.
And it kind of said that, you can't control where a river's going to go. Like it can be like calm waters, there can be a waterfall, there can be rapids. Like the
Hmm.
only thing that you can do is be the best navigator of your boat.
Yeah.
And the idea is that life is the river and the boat is you.
Yeah.
And many times during this, I was like, is this a river problem or is it a boat problem? Because if it's a river problem, I can't do anything about it. I have to accept it. Like I
Right.
can't change the fact that the accident happened. I can't change the fact that, all these things are going on with his body that, like it's out of. So the only thing I can do is show up in a way that helps do the things that I can. Like, and I think like what it started to make me understand is that like resilient, it's almost like, resilience is not about being tough. It's not about having it all together. It's about being a mess and just finding a way to dust yourself off and move forward and keep doing the things that and I think like that's what it started to show me, was that, yeah, I need to separate what I can impact and what I can't impact and just focus on that. And that kind of went hand in hand with this idea of like, is it a today problem or a tomorrow problem? Because
Yes.
I've got
Yes.
I've got enough problems, and so it was just a way to keep myself sane. Like how
Hmm.
can I? Yeah, yeah, is this a tomorrow problem? Like not tomorrow, but like, is this like, people start saying, yeah, but in 3 months from now, and I'm like, I don't care about 3 months from
Good.
now.
Yeah. Can't even
I'm
go there
just
right now.
like,
Yep.
we've got to get through this week.
Yeah.
That's the, so I was very strong in myself to like just separate things out, like chunk stuff down a bit.
Right.
Um, and that also went for, you know, what I call operationalize the chaos. Like, you know, and this applies to, if you find yourself in a tough place at work or anything, but all of a sudden, like the situation has totally changed. We're now living in a hospital in a room above the ICU, and you suddenly need to like chunk stuff because if I when I was trying to think about it all, I would just end up in the corner either eating cake or crying. That
Oh,
was my
the overwhelm of it. I can
yeah.
only imagine. Yeah.
And so it really became about like, okay, we need help. Like it takes a village, and it was really delegating. Like we need help, from we need access to food. We need somebody to do our laundry every 3 days. We need
Yeah.
stuff like, because like we literally had just what we had in our suitcases, So it was really like figuring out like, okay, how can we operationalize things a bit? Like how can we
Hmm.
take pressure off us
Right.
that we can just focus on what's happening with Liam in the ICU room. So there was things like that that really helped. And then you start getting into like I don't know, maybe after about the second or third week, you start to burn out because
Ah,
you're not eating great, you're not sleeping great, you're not
yes.
none of it. And both my wife and I, we say it was it was almost like going back to when they were small babies. And if you don't, both of you are not sleeping through the
Exactly.
night, then
Yes.
then you start to deteriorate.
Yes.
But it was the same thing that we suddenly realized, like, yeah, this is a long path. This is not
Right. This is a
like
marathon. Yeah.
we can't do this at 120%. So it was really like making sure that okay, you do one night, I do one night in the room with him,
Yeah.
and making sure that every so often you got some time to just go away and decompress, go for a walk, or just literally just sit in the sun for 10 minutes outside the hospital somewhere with a cup of coffee, you know like self-care became something that was important to stop, because we knew that this was not going to be a quick thing. And yeah, and that took many different forms. So like, yeah, self-care was another big piece of the puzzle eventually.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that you suddenly start connecting the dots. And I think like one of the bigger pieces that I suddenly thought about was, okay, so what allows you, first of all, what is resilience? Like, and what makes somebody resilient? And I suddenly, and this is where I kind of talk about it now as resilience is a choice, which sounds
Oh,
like, I don't know, I can't, but it doesn't mean like you can choose to be resilient because what I understood is like, you only become resilient by doing tough things. So you can't decide to be
right.
resilient. You get resilience from going through challenging times or through tough things. And
Okay.
this is a bit like when I'm 52. So when I connect the dots back through my life, I suddenly realize, yeah, actually, many times I put myself in challenging situations. I've always been somebody who I don't mind being outside of my comfort zone. I don't mind
Hmm.
change. And it doesn't have to be big things. It can be small things. And a bit like we talked about, like, the fact that I went backpacking for 2 years, or the fact that I went through this process of building businesses or moving countries or public speaking
Right.
or comedy, like all these things, that actually that's what helps you build resilience so that, yeah, eventually, if you suddenly have to go through something really massive, then you've already got like a bit of a foundation. So I think like it's also this idea that, yeah, from as early as you can, just seek out challenges, seek out
Yeah.
change, seek out things, because that eventually is what makes you resilient. Like an easy, comfortable life does not make you resilient. So and it doesn't, like I say,
Yeah.
it's not about big things. You know, being outside of our comfort zones can be small things as well, but it's definitely something that doing hard things is a good thing,
And doing
definitely.
it in more of a regular frequency, I guess, also, so that it's, um, I don't know, built in, so to speak,
Yeah,
to your makeup, if you will. You're saying seek these out, and that might be, signing up to do a project in your team where you've never done it before and you don't really know what you're doing, but
exactly.
sure, I'll
Yeah.
take it on. I'll do it. And you learn from that, and you maybe learn, how to go research who within the company knows this part and this part and this part, and we just go make it happen, kind of like building a briefing program. Like I hadn't
Yeah,
done it before. Oh, here's these people over here, this ABPM people. Oh, okay, can you tell me about this, that, and the other? And my boss is like, oh, it's great, you'll love it. Go over here, talk to these people. There you go, 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 go. I'm like,
yeah,
okay. But then you step over the threshold and you start doing, and then you start learning, and here I am 20 something years later going, I'm so glad I decided to do that. And then
yeah,
make
yeah. It's
making job changes when things are for the most part really going well and everything, but deep down in my gut is like, I can't do this anymore. There's something about this, um, that I just need a change. And, as I have said many times on these podcasts, you put it out in the universe, and those things can become reality if you're willing to recognize them, like, believe and receive and all of that, if
yeah,
you're able to. Um, and I've just been amazed by stepping over that, it's just going to the solution partner side, the idea of, selling something to somebody. Oh no, it's just relationship management. Well, no, there's actually, a sales aspect to it. It scared the crap out of me, you know.
yeah,
But it was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this because deep down, I know there's something, it's something I need to do.
yeah.
And thank God I did,
Such a great example. I think like it's this idea of saying yes before you're ready, and
Yeah,
then
oh, big
and then
time.
and then and then preparing like a badass. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'll
and I
figure
think
this
like
out.
definitely, and I think that applies to so many things. Like we're never ready. We never feel ready.
Right. Right.
And I think it's like that that's what stops us doing many things. And I think like whether
Yeah.
it's you're going to give a talk, like you said, like you're going to start a new program inside the company, you're going to it's almost like you can't wait. You just have to say yes, move forward, and then
Yeah.
just do the work, do the
Learn.
preparation, trust in
Yeah.
yourself. Like it's
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And
invest in
I
you.
think a lot of what you're talking about also obviously applies to our work lives, but certainly our personal lives as well. The decisions to, like you said, moving different countries and doing things, moving away from, in my case, the Bay Area and moving back home. There's a lot of reasons to do that. There was a lot of like, okay, are you shooting yourself in the foot by doing that from a work standpoint also? And, again, thank God that's not been the case. But, you just really being open to what is possible and what you can make of something. I mean, you've done all these businesses. You have your own business right now, and being able to, make what it is out of the experiences you've created and the wisdom that you have to share, and all this study of neuroscience and emotions, and presentation and design and marketing and everything. Funny enough, I went to school for business also, and I had a management option, which, oh, boring as all get out. So yeah, I switched over to marketing also. Oh, here's the advertising piece. And oh, here's doing all these things. Yeah, much more in line, much better. Yeah, absolutely. I also wanted to bring up something that you had shared with me too, and um, one of those realizations you had about the emotion piece was related to PTSD and why people are afflicted with, and examples of finding what you call a psychological safety space. Can you
Yeah.
can you frame that for folks and talk more about that too?
Yeah, so one of the things I didn't talk about when I shared the story of what happened with Liam is obviously he was with his brother, his younger brother,
Yes.
and so his younger brother saw the worst of any of us because he saw the accident happened and he actually saved his brother's life. Like
Yeah.
he because when the accident happened, Liam was actually on fire, and he climbed like a few meters up and put the fire out. So he got like burns on his hands.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's an unbelievable. thing to go through at any age. But yeah, at 15, 16, it's, a traumatic,
Very.
as traumatic event as you can
Yeah.
possibly imagine. And like as well as like we had on top of what was happening with Liam in the ICU, we also had Tom and what happened to him, and we were trying to like also spend time with him and also trying to make sure he's okay and get him out of the hospital to go and do certain things. and
Right.
and eventually what for me was one of the hardest decisions I had to do in all of this was we kind of said like one of us needs to take Tom back home to Amsterdam, like.
Yeah.
And so because obviously like we were there over the Christmas break when it happened, but then you very quickly, obviously we're gonna have to be there in the hospital, but the school year is starting, and
Right.
like so
Yeah.
basically I said like, okay, I'll take him back. So basically I was doing 2 weeks there, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks here, like just like
Oh,
alternating 2 weeks. And we had like a few times, we still do like periodically, like we give both of them the opportunity to talk to like a therapist or a psychologist.
sure.
and
Oh, for
and
sure.
but one of the things, to try and process what they've been through, and what we discovered was, which is what one of the therapists told us, is that they see, especially with children, but also in adults, that if you're in a highly traumatic event, and relatively quickly you get back to a place of what you consider to be a safe space, like a psychologically safe
Uh-huh.
space, uh, they will almost never get PTSD, and PTSD only comes from when we can't get out of the traumatic event. And
Right.
so I think like for us, it made me feel better about the decision because I found it tough not to be with Liam in the hospital for those 2 weeks.
Sure.
But at the same time, I could see straight away with Tom, that like how he responded the second he got back home to his bedroom, to the cat, to
Oh,
his
yeah.
friends, to go
Yeah.
back to school. And of course, like I had to do a lot of, like I went to speak to the school and ask them like, okay, what he doesn't need is 100 people coming to ask him how he is and what's going on.
Right.
So, I got the school to talk to the children before he came back, and
Great.
and to kind of like protect him as much as I could from that.
Right.
And yeah, and eventually it was like a uh, really good decision because it really helped him go back to his normal life. And yeah, and so far, touch wood, we never know what the future will bring, but he's like handling it really well. And yeah, because he really saved his brother's life. Like
Yeah.
he was the one who put the fire out, called us,
Right.
like managed to help guide the ambulance into where they were. Like unbelievable what
Oh,
he did. Like because he could have easily just froze or whatever. Like but yeah, but
wow.
it's again, it's like I guess like all of these things that I've learned, like they're just equally applied to like the workspace, because if we
Yeah.
if we look at like what's happening inside companies at the moment, there's an enormous amount of change and a lot of stress, and people are
Yeah.
scared for their jobs. And I think like, you know, things like having a place of psychological safety. Yeah, it's like, how do I get away from this particular situation that's causing me trauma, and,
Hmm.
and have time in a space that's, you know, where I can actually get away from it and decompress a bit. And so like and it doesn't matter, whether it's the self-care, whether it's the operationalizing things, whether it's the leaning on relationships, all that stuff. I think
Right.
it's something it's really important to do if you want you and your team, and people to thrive in times when it's really tough. And even stuff like, which again, it kind of speaks to what I was just saying about, we knew that we didn't want like 100 people going to Tom and saying, oh my God, what happened, how are you, like. And
Yeah.
it was the same with us in the beginning, that like I very quickly understood I cannot have loads of people coming to me very upset and crying, and oh,
Yes.
this is so
They love
terrible.
you, they care for you, but that's just too much for you to take
Exactly.
on. Yeah.
And I was like, I can't take other people's emotion. I have I
Right.
have plenty of
Right.
my own.
Right.
And so for us, like humor became a really
Ah,
important tool, Like we were telling like all of us, including Liam when he woke up, like all the way through it, we had like very dark humor, but it saved us because
Uh,
it breaks the tension, it breaks the heaviness of what you're going through. So like using humor as a tool was really important to us. It's even Liam, like when because again, like if we go back to like April, he had to learn to walk again because
oh,
he'd been in bed for so long. He lost loads, so he had to relearn to walk and as we started with just in his room and then just in the ICU and eventually, with enough time, we're like walking outside. And of course, people look at him because he's covered in bandages and so he said, okay. And we started getting him t-shirts. Like he was picking them, but like one was like with a big electricity site, like
my
uh
God.
yeah, like danger, beware,
Oh,
shocking stuff like
oh,
and it was just like but it was what you saw was people would still look at him, but then
right,
they would see the t-shirt and smile. And it
right,
totally changed the situation. And I think
right.
like humor is a very powerful thing to help you or your family or a team of people, whatever is like it's something that is underutilized, but it's really powerful.
Well, I mean, that's really great. Here he is, probably a walking mummy, with all of his bandages and things with this t-shirt. But how nice to, be able to put other people at ease. Again, they are probably thinking, oh my gosh, and what happened? And oh, I hope he's okay and all that. And here he has this, like, yeah, I'm good, and it just kind of breaks the ice of that, concern, if you will.
Yeah.
But speaking of humor, you shared something else with me that I thought, what? How in the world? I mean, talk about going out of your comfort zone. But something that you really love. And will you tell folks what it is that you have been doing?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're speaking about improv comedy.
Yes.
It's something I started about 2 years ago, and yeah, it really I actually started it because I'm just always obsessed with how can I improve my knowledge or improve my experience of public speaking, presenting, things like that. And
Uh-huh.
I thought
Yeah.
actually improv's really interesting because it's about can you have confidence on a stage when you can do really zero preparation. You just have to step
That's the
onto the
part that scares the
stage.
crap out of me. There's no way.
Yeah. And that's what's really powerful. For me, it was horrible in the beginning because like I have spent 15 years. I'm a preparation person. Like
Exactly,
I
exactly. Here's
plan,
the
I
script.
practice.
Here's
Like
your
it's
slides. Yeah.
and yeah, and for the longest time, like I would be about to go on, and my brain would start. Oh, I could say this, or I could do this. Like, and I would have all
Exactly.
these ideas. And
Right.
of course, you step on the stage, and if somebody says something totally different, then all those ideas are gone.
Exactly.
And and yeah, the essence of improv is really like your only job on the stage is to make your scene partner look good, and their only
Okay,
job is to
okay.
make you look good. And
Right.
this applies to so many. I mean, like I even have brought the improv because improv is based on yes and. So whatever your
Okay.
scene partner says, you agree with it and you build on it. And
Okay,
so
okay.
and it's a lot about active listening and it's a lot about all these different things. So it's something that I've used a lot in my personal life. I've brought it into the training that I do for discussion leaders and briefing people in terms of like
Oh,
extreme listening and extreme agreement and things like that. But yeah, so I really started it from a work point of view, but eventually it kind of became just a joy. Like every Thursday I go and spend 3 hours with a group of people who are really supportive and we just
yeah.
laugh the whole time. And yeah, it kind of went from how can you be more confident when you can't have any preparation? But it just turned into kind of like cheap therapy.
Yeah, I was
Like
gonna say it seems very
you know,
therapeutic in a whole
it's
different kind of way.
exactly it's a very positive thing. So yeah, I would highly recommend improv to anybody,
Well, if
whether you
anybody
want to
wants to get
be
out of
a
their
more
comfort
confident.
zone.
Yeah, so
Uh,
definitely. But
oh, that's That's great. Okay, that's good to know though. Yes, and okay, agree, make your partner look good and add to it. Yeah. I'm just thinking of whose line is it anyways? The
Exactly.
show
Perfect.
on TV,
Yeah.
which surprisingly they're on tour and they're going to come to my little town up here. I'm like, oh,
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
maybe we should actually go see that now. I think
Definitely.
that would
Yeah,
be
that's
really
that's
cool.
classic short form improv. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Oh, that's great. Oh, Spencer, this has just been lovely. Thank you so much for obviously sharing what has happened with you and your family, but the steps that you've taken, the light at the end of the tunnel, the ways to understand the emotions, and then the resiliency and just all of it, I think is so appropriate for all of us to hear, not just for our work, but certainly in our personal lives as well. And I always love to wrap up with lessons learned, and I know you could have a list of 20 different things that you could tell people at this moment, but if you had two or three, what would you want folks to leave with? How do you want them to feel when they leave?
Yeah, yeah. I think like I mean I've got two or three things I can say, but I'll start with what I said earlier is being resilient is not about being tough or strong or having it all together. And I think for me that was the
Yeah.
biggest takeaway because there were many times that I was crying in the corner or my I was a comfort eater. So I would like I noticed many
Oh,
times like I would come out of the ICU room after a tough moment and I would like before even without thinking I would find myself upstairs in a corner somewhere eating a cake or like
yeah.
and so like really not like so being resilient is not about having it all sorted out. It's just about the ability to move forward anyway, like to just
Right.
dust yourself off and kind of move forward. And I think like when I think about lessons that I've learned connected to that, and also this also connects a bit to the what we were talking earlier about the emotions, because I think that's our operating system. But I
Yes.
think like the race is long. This actually comes from a song in the 90s called Sunscreen, I think, from the US, Baz Luhrmann. But like, it's a line that always stuck with me that the race is long, and at the end of the day, it's only with yourself.
Oh
And
my.
I think
Oh
like,
wow.
and I think like, whether it's public speaking or communication or going through tough times, it is, if I had to pick two or three lessons, then I would say, yeah, the race is long, like, and it's only with yourself. So don't compare yourself to other people. Just
Ah,
focus on what you're doing. And I think like the second thing is, and this applies to, again, both the presentation side and everything else, but people really don't think about you as much as you think they do.
that's so good
Uh,
to hear.
like you can think you're up on a stage bombing, but actually they're probably worried about an argument they had with their partner or what,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
so I always think like people don't think about you really, like you're not important to people. And I think we over index on what people think about us.
Yeah.
Um,
Don't put
and
all that
yeah,
energy
I think
into it. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And I think like the third thing would be that we're more capable or we're capable of more than what we think we are.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I've worked with people who were really, really like introverted and not confident, and I see them turn into a rock star of a presenter. So I think
Oh,
I think many times, and because this goes back to like imposter syndrome, like we all have imposter syndrome because this is biology, it's our emotions, and I think like yeah,
yeah.
everybody's capable of more than what they think they are, and I think it's just yeah, dust yourself off, take one step, and like you said earlier, it's like say yes before you're ready, and then
Yes.
prepare like a badass.
And
But
go anyways.
yeah,
Just go
and do it
anyway.
anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. Ah, thank you so much, Spencer. I've just really enjoyed meeting you. Honestly, we seriously met like 2 weeks ago, and
yeah,
I so appreciate you reaching out. I just love the chats that we've had. Thank you for doing this with me, in your evening from Amsterdam and the day before you're going away on holiday. And you know.
No,
It's just been fantastic. And I will also make sure to share. We have some links to your keynote on resilience and being able to have folks have those references too, so they can dig a little bit deeper in looking at what you've shared today. So thank
yeah, and I'd love to say as well, if because what as I've started to talk about this, what I realize is you never know who's going through tough times
you. Yes.
in the people around you. And
Yeah.
we had another family with that. One of the nurses actually connected us during the middle of all the nightmare, and it was so helpful to have another family that had been through a similar thing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I would definitely say, even if we've never met and you don't know me and you're just hearing this podcast and you're going through something really, really tough at the moment, like get in touch. Like if you just want
Yeah.
somebody to just like talk to and just have somebody to listen, whatever, like because I've been there and it helped me. So I would love to just put the offer out there that if
Oh,
anybody's going through tough times and they just want a stranger's ear to bend, then I'm here.
oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I honestly, I just think this is such a perfect way for folks to be able to start the new year also.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
just it's perfect timing. Perfect timing. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. And I will say thank you to everyone listening today. And please visit our podcast episode page where we'll provide links to those resources that Spencer was talking about. And you can listen to this and other podcasts in our series by visiting thecxlive.buzzsprout.com or through the GASP Resources podcast page. And please subscribe to stay informed about future podcast episodes. And if you have any thoughts or questions about today's podcast or have any ideas for future industry podcast topics, the best way to reach me is by email, and that's Darby at engagewithexpressions.com. And thank you for listening.